All right, welcome to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Season 4, Episode 3, which is also Episode 114. I am Rob, and joining me on this minimum viable podcast is Hugh.
Yes, definitely minimum viable. You know, I worked for this startup company. It's not a startup company anymore, I guess. And the CEO there, you could not use the word minimum viable product in front of him.
Really?
Like, yeah, it really, he was definitely give you the rant about, minimum. That's really what we should be shooting for here, the bare minimum. Like, he was very sarcastic and very unhappy with the idea that you would build something less than a fully functioning system.
I mean, has he ever been in IT development?
No, but I mean, he did ultimately sell the company for $600 million, $650 million, and he still owned 10% of the stock at the time.
Oh, wow. Good for him. What have you been up to? You haven't sold any companies lately, have you?
No, definitely not, unfortunately. I also did not buy nearly enough of stock at that company myself, but that's how I got to open the notes to see what I've been doing here. Well, I've been playing a lot of my Game Club pick, which was Doom 64.
Mm-hmm.
I actually ended up playing all the way through it. So, well, not all the way through. I'll get to it later. And then I tried playing Super Monkey Ball HD Remake.
Okay.
But that game gets really difficult. It has some features to make the levels easier, like giving you more time, because a lot of the levels, if you're just patient, you can get through it.
Yeah.
But it's still really hard. I don't know if I'm going to finish it.
Yeah, that's on Switch, right?
That's on Switch. Yeah, it's probably on other stuff. I don't know.
Probably Steam or something.
Something, yeah. Yeah, it's on Switch for sure. And then I keep telling myself, like, I have this huge pile of computer books, and I'm like, I got to get rid of books. Like, I have a lot of Doom books, like Doom programming books, they're never going to use. So, of course, I went to Half Price Books and bought the Doom Hacker's Guide. This is from, late 90s. It has a CD-ROM with a bunch of tools for DOS. So, I'm doing the opposite of the problem I'm trying to solve.
That is funny. That's a cool find, though.
Yeah, it's only a couple dollars. And, Doom editing is always something I think I'm going to do, and then I don't do it. I think it's because I'm not really good at designing, like, 3D spaces. Anything I design ends up just being, kind of bland and garbagey.
I've never tried.
Yeah, it's hard. So what have you been up to?
Oh, man, let's see. I finished Bayonetta, that 2009 game from Sega. And the first level, like the tutorial, which is kind of long. Yeah, not long, but, let's just call it half an hour. Not great, but then it gets pretty good after that. I'm glad I stuck with it. The characters really aren't the kind of characters I would get into. They're kind of the, talk cool, act cool. I don't know what that style is called. If any of our listeners knows that style name, please let me know. But it's the person that created, what did he do? Devil May Cry and a handful of other games. And it was great. And also, one of the highlights of it, there was another Sega retro game that you kind of play in the middle of it. And I don't want to say what it is because it was a great, unexpected thing that I'd like other people to experience the same way I did. It was my favorite part of the game. I couldn't believe they did that. In fact, I didn't even know it was a Sega game until that point. So I will probably play number 2 and eventually 3, but not for a while. How Long to Beat said it should take like 10 to 12 hours to beat, and it took me like 16. So I guess I'm not good at games. Have you ever played that one? Bayonetta?
No.
A lot of butt shots in that one. A lot of camera angles in that one.
Yeah. I just played an RPG that did a lot of that too. And it was, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't understand the appeal, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Every time my wife would walk by, I'd just point it out, be like, look what's going on. Do you know what BlissBox is as a product or a company? Okay. So BlissBox is a device you could get for your computer. I think they have like PCI cards, but anyway, it's an interface for your computer that has HDMI outs, and these HDMI outs act as USB. And so you get these HDMI adapters to like Atari, Nintendo, PlayStation, you name the system, they have the adapter. And it gives your real controllers absolutely zero lag. It's pretty incredible. Anyway.
Oh, so I actually do know about this. I now remember that I have heard of this product.
Yeah, it had been around for a while, but whenever I do a Mister as a topic, I'll go into this more, but they have a Mister version of it that they actually build. Anyway, I just found out for them, they're so helpful in Discord. I think it's actually the owner I've been messaging. The Neo Geo kind of bean controller, you know what I'm talking about? Not the big square controller, but the one that came out a little bit after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have one of those that I was trying to use with it, and it kept not working at all. And they worked with me for so long. So I sent them my controller, and they're going to create drivers for it. So pretty cool company, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not cheap, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah. It's a really cool product. And they got a bad rap for a while because there were some models that didn't work. But I mean, I think they fixed them all. Like if you wanted a new one, they'd send it to you.
Well, it works with the Atari Jaguar. That's all that matters, is because nothing I want more than to use the Atari Jaguar controller
Yes.
on other systems.
Could you imagine mapping that controller, all those buttons?
It'd be good for television, I guess.
Yeah.
It'd be okay for it. The problem is like people make fun of the Jaguar controller, and it is indeed kind of janky. But it's just that the D-pad and the buttons aren't good either. Like, it's just not a good D-pad. It feels like kind of a cheap third-party controller. At least the D-pad and buttons do.
I can't even remember the last time I held one, so I can't remember, but it sounds about right. And then what else? One last thing in my notes. I don't know if I've been complaining to our listeners, but I know I've been complaining to you about my laptop, and it finally died. I plugged it into.
What's this about your laptop?
So my laptop could never ever do Google Meet, which we used to record the show. As you've heard me complaining about it so much, and you've had to deal with it. And I plugged it into a new docking station, and it just fried the thing. And I'm actually using the docking station right now. It's a perfectly fine docking station. So I think I got a lemon of a computer, so hopefully that is all behind me. I shipped it back. So we shall see how that turns out. But yeah, I think that's about all I've been up to. I guess we should start this episode.
Analogue Pocket and Dock firmware updates merged. I don't know what that means.
So it's all one download now, where if you have your if you have your Pocket connected to the dock, it can update the whole thing, and there is a ton of fixes already for it. I guess Shantae didn't work too great. Mario Land 3 didn't work too great. Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat didn't work great regardless.
So if you happen to have a Pocket, if you're one of the 7 people, definitely update it.
Let's see. I read the different version of this article, so I'm not going to read the article again. I didn't link to the one I read, but someone used the tool Ghidra, which we talked about in an early episode, to take the previously unreleased emulator SNESTicle out of a video game. So the short version is the guy that wrote Genesis and Nesticle. These were like early DOS emulators that like everybody used. Uh-huh. They were the first good emulators for those systems. And he got hired by Electronic Arts and went to do programming for them. And in some game he worked on, you can play a Super Nintendo game. So his Super Nintendo emulator that he claimed didn't exist, turns out actually did exist, and he included it in a game, which then you can extract and run as a standalone. Of course, this is a 20-year-old emulator now, and there probably are better ones. Yeah.
I guess the point of this article is the lore was actually true.
Yes.
So there's a Python file. So if you have Fight Night Round 2, I guess you could stick that in a DVD drive and extract it, maybe.
Yeah. For eBay prices for that just went up.
Yes.
Tomb Raider on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, it's an actual Tomb Raider engine. And so it's not like, usually when we do this stuff, it's like, oh, it's wirelessly streaming to my Game Boy, but this is actually a Tomb Raider game. So someone wrote a whole engine for it, and you can actually play it. This probably should have been in Takedown Pending, huh?
Yeah, we probably should move that to Takedown Letter Pending section, because that's not going to be around.
Yeah.
Next one could also be in Takedown Letter Pending. I don't know. Sonic the Hedgehog ported to C64 C128.
I think we talked about this one before. This is just a big update for it.
Oh, okay.
So it works a lot better now, and it's very, very impressive for a C64.
Yeah, the one I was going to delete. Someone added mouse support to Star Fox.
Yeah, so I think this is the Mario Paint mouse.
Yeah, that's the only mouse on Super Nintendo that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I'd like to see a video of it in action.
Yeah, I don't know. This fits into like the category of things that I'm like, Like someone will write an article like, hey, we fixed the mappings on the activator for Mortal Kombat. Okay, who cares? There is, Ys, one of my favorite game series, it had a Saturn release, sort of, right? There was a couple of Saturn collections released called Falcom Classics, which had, I think, 3 different Falcom games on each of them. It's like Ys and Xanadu and possibly Tombs and Treasure. I think I own these CDs, so I guess I could look. And someone went through and has been working on a translation, a fan translation of Ys 1 on there. It is in a very, very early stage, though.
It's really bad. They just used Google Translate. That's all they did. So it's very much at a starting point.
Yeah. I mean, if you know the game really well, then you probably, like, here's the deal. I could probably just translate like the gist of the dialogue in most of the scenes. It might not be literal, but I kind of can. Like, you can't copy other translations, I suppose.
I guess
that's kind of a weird one. Like, if you just copied like Exceed's translation or Sega's translation, well, I guess they're not direct one-to-one translations, so it's like copying a recipe, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone, like, there's one way to make minestrone soup, right? Well, it's like 2 or 3 ways, but you get my gist, right? You can't copyright that, but you can write a book where you add a bunch of narrative around, like, here's how my grandmother made it in whatever kind of stories you want to add.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing here. Like, you could literally translate it, and then you can kind of add your own flavor to it, and I guess some of that would be copyrightable and some probably would not be.
Yeah, this is a strange one, but I've never seen I mean, do they upgrade the graphics at all on the Saturn, or?
No, on that version, I mean, at the time, it's pretty good looking. You know, it looks close to like Ys Eternal, which was the official Ys remake on PC that came out in, I don't know, 97-ish.
Okay. I didn't even know about that one. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, that did not get a US release. So the closest thing, so Ys Eternal got ported to the DS as, it's called like Legacy of Ys 1 and 2. That has a US release. The DS version of Ys is about my least favorite, though.
Okay.
Like, the PSP version is, the thing that's on PSP is much better. I know a listener of the show here. I think, pretty sure he's a listener. Dale Coop. He goes by and he puts out a lot of NES games. He's bought quite a few. He has a new one called Skate Cat. And we are plugging that. Yeah.
So it's a platformer for the NES. Yeah. Right now it's kind of in a beta. It's not quite done yet, right?
Yeah. But it looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very cool. And yeah, if you go in our show notes and click on this link, you can link to his Twitter and stuff and get updates.
Then we have Doom running on things. So this is the minimum viable computer. So this is something, I guess, built at Hackaday. He calls it like a Linux Swiss Army knife computer. And it only costs $15 to make this computer, and it can run Doom.
But, I mean, it really is minimum viable. Like, I think it's a single processor at 533 megahertz with 32 meg of RAM. So
yes, which again are pretty impressive specs when you think about it for $15.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. What else do we have here? We have on Indie Retro News, we have Castlevania ported to Amiga.
Yeah,
right?
That's going to get taken down.
Yes. It looks great, though. But I think it was you that I'm quoting where everything looks great on Amiga, but it usually doesn't play great.
Yeah, that could be me. Most Amiga games, yeah, definitely look great. I mean, the Amiga hardware-wise is very similar to Sega Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
So you, of course, could play a Castlevania game on it. But most Amiga games look really great standing still. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the scrolling it they struggle with.
Yeah.
I think this is my the favorite one of the week. An AI broke Tetris on the NES, and it's compelling to look at. So did you watch this video at all?
Yeah, this is actually a few, I think I swear I saw this video or some variation. Maybe this is like a newer version. But I saw this, I think like back in December, maybe. But yeah, it's an AI just achieving unbelievable scores at Tetris. But then also like, I don't know why these bugs happen, but it creates some crazy bugs with like color palettes and distortion and all kinds of just crazy things.
Yeah, and then eventually there is a kill screen.
Yeah, it's long. You have to watch this thing for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I did fast forward a lot. Yeah.
To get to the kill screen. It's a lot like the AI that found like, it was a Qbert bug, Qbert on 2600. It found like an infinite point bug that people didn't know about.
Nice.
It just somehow figured it out.
We kind of have a topic this week, right?
Yeah, we recently picked Miss Pac-Man as a game club game. And then in our little like offline, well, I guess it's online still chat with Zach, we were talking about, it's the 40th anniversary of Miss Pac-Man. Too bad you just talked about it, right? And then I questioned whether it really was the 40th anniversary of Miss Pac-Man, because like there's no like if Miss Pac-Man was copywritten or some sort of distinction that made Miss Pac-Man a real game happened on February 3rd, I think is the official date.
Mm-hmm.
Like to the average person going into an arcade in the US, you didn't see Miss Pac-Man on February 3rd, right? We didn't have like nationwide game launch events in 1982.
Yeah.
So then that kind of led us, Zach especially, into the rabbit hole of when was Miss Pac-Man actually released? Like, and when was it part of like popular culture? And that's a lot of what he dug up a lot of stuff. He dug up a lot about the history of Miss Pac-Man for us. And then a lot of just, newspaper in books and magazines and other media, when they first made mention of Miss Pac-Man being a thing. And it's all over the place. It seems to me like early summer 1982 is the first time most people would actually have seen Miss Pac-Man.
That makes sense because it would take time for them to get them into all the arcades and bars, right?
Yeah, we didn't have like distribution and launch events and all that stuff, man. It just wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff he dug up. So first of all, he says we're gonna link to like two videos. One is the Steve Golson MIT talk, which he talks a lot about the development of Miss Pac-Man there. And then a podcast I haven't listened to, so I apologize if the hosts are listening. The Paducah podcast, which I've heard a lot of people mention before. Like, I think this is a pretty well-respected podcast.
It's very well done, yeah.
Yeah, I just haven't gotten to the point of listening to it yet, so I'm a bad person, I guess. And on their episode number 30, they talk for about, looks like 90 minutes about the history of Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah. The YouTube presentation that one of the creators of Miss Pac-Man gave at MIT is just fantastic. He goes into doing the same thing for Missile Command and stuff like that, and how he won a court battle for what they were doing, and got invited to like Namco the same, I think, one day after the next. And yeah, it's just really interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. So here's the interesting thing. So Wikipedia apparently says, as of whenever we're recording this, I know Wikipedia is organic and can change, says January 13th, 82. But that's really the date that the copyright was filed for Miss Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this newspaper article. I don't know if you read all these articles or not.
Most of them. I at least glanced at them.
So the apparent first reference to it is in Los Angeles Times, February 4th, 1982, which is basically 40 years ago, that references that there is a new game coming out called Miss Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man made her debut in typical show business style at a press conference in the Castle Park Entertainment Center in Sherman Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
It is expected to appear in many video arcades during the next few weeks. Video games have so far attracted a predominantly male clientele, but what's the fun of having the guys without the dolls? That is a line in a newspaper. I feel like it's good. Like none of the things any of us said in the 80s and 90s is like memorialized forever. We would all be canceled.
Yeah, definitely different times. Yeah.
Yeah. To woo potential female gamers, Miss Pac-Man is outfitted with more fashion wrinkles than a new Halston. What's the Halston? What's an 80s thing I forgot about? Pac-Man is a homely little yellow critter on the screen, but his female counterpart is resplendent in red lips and eyelashes.
I mean, I guess that's correct.
You've described the artwork on Miss Pac-Man. So that's really that seems to be the official release, in that here is a game that we are going to be releasing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things. There's a magazine or newspaper called, was it Cashbox? What is Cashbox?
I have no idea.
Paper. It looks like an industry paper. From November 82 that talks about the success of the cabinet. And that article says the cabinet was introduced in January of that year. So this is an article from November 82. It says Miss Pac-Man was done in January. So that's the first part, is there's not really a very firm lockdown date. But February 3rd seems like the most reasonable one to me. I don't know. But in terms of when it started showing up, so May 1982, there is the Fitchburg State College newspaper. Where's Fitchburg?
Never heard of it.
Okay, good. They also have, man. Sorry, you look at the college paper, they like editorials, and you're like, yeah, we're still arguing about a lot of this stuff today. But it has an article called Love at the Arcades. And I'm trying to zoom and it changed pages on me.
That kept happening to me too, and that's why I didn't get through all the articles. So our listeners should know a lot of almost all of these are on archive.org. So you're reading in a weird PDF viewer where, it does like animated page flips and stuff.
Yes, but this is by Stephen Vogelslang. I should have prepped by looking these people up to see what they're doing today, and possibly being happily surprised or depressed. Well, if he was a college student, if this is a college paper, and he was 20 in 1982, he's, I don't know, living in the Villages now. I don't know. So this is just about his love affair with Miss Pac-Man, and how, it compared to some other arcade games at the time. So that at least is proof that in Fitchburg, wherever that is, they had it in May 1982. Cashbox also talks about it in May of 1982. I'm now sort of interested in this Cashbox. I can see if I can download an archive. It looks like, again, an industry paper. Hopefully everyone's familiar with the concept of an industry paper. And Yeah, it first talks about Miss Pac-Man really in 1982, in May of 1982, being distributed. And then it seems to be a success so far.
I mean, I could see that. Yeah, if it was actually released in February, by the time it got noticed by most people, it probably would have taken those few months.
Oh, yeah, so I think this cash box. What is this? Hold on, I'm fascinated by this. It has a list of the most played jukebox songs at the time.
Okay.
Interesting. And wow. So it's actually broken up by mostly, it's got pop, country, and then their term, Black Contemporary, which I guess you would call R&B today, maybe.
Okay.
But those are the genres. Do you want to guess? So this is May 1982. Do you think you can name any song on the jukebox top 30 for pop?
Thriller?
I think Thriller's a year later.
Oh.
No.
So is there any Michael Jackson? Because he would have had.
You're a year too early for Michael Jackson, I think.
Okay.
For his big breakout.
I'm going to say. Oh, man. How about Starship? Are they on there? That seems like that kind of music would have been getting kind of big around then.
No.
Madness? Would they have been big around then?
The band? Nope.
No. No. What are the top 5?
Top 5. We'll do reverse order. Number 5, Still in Saigon by the Charlie Daniels Band.
Okay.
Okay. Number 4, 8675309 Jenny by Tommy Two-Tone.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, I've Never Been to Me by Charlene. I gotta tell you, I've never heard
of it.
Number 2, Did It in a Minute by Hall & Oates.
Okay. Number
1, Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney.
Oh, okay.
Oh, speaking of Paul McCartney, like I saw a movie trailer that I honestly can't believe it's a real movie. Since I've referenced Paul McCartney, do you think you know what I'm talking about?
Is it the Beatles' last show movie?
No. This is a movie that is coming to theaters later this year. It is, I don't remember the title, but the premise is the Foo Fighters, the actual Foo Fighters, the band, are recording an album in a haunted house.
Is it supposed to be real or is it a comedy? Or
it's a comedy. It's supposed to be, it's clearly not real. But it is the real Foo Fighters, none of whom are actors.
After this podcast, I'm definitely going to look up this trailer.
Yeah. It does not look good. I mean, I know like I'm very down on most modern movies. I do like the Foo Fighters for the most part, you know. I wouldn't go to a Foo Fighters concert probably because I don't like concerts very much, but you know, they're a fine band. I bring that up because Dave Grohl is sort of like our generation's equivalent of Paul McCartney.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, he's whatever. Going back to some of these other things, a few of these might go through a little bit quickly. So Electronic Games Magazine has a very, very small mention in their June 1982 issue. The way magazines, I don't know, trade papers, I think the date usually matches the real date it's published. Like video game magazines, the date is usually a month off. So this was probably actually written in May. But it has an ad with Miss Pac-Man wearing a mink scarf of some sort. She doesn't really have a neck, so I don't know what type of clothing this is. Coming out of an old-fashioned limo and walking up to the arcade game with her name on it.
Okay.
All right. And then Play Meter 1982, July 1982, has an article called Miss Pac-Man Catching Up, which is about Miss Pac-Man, you know, starting to show up in arcades. So again, I think, and the last one is another one. An article called, wait, hold on. I have to really compliment Zach on his research here because I never thought to look at this magazine. So November 1982, a magazine called Working Woman Magazine has a mention of Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah, I
That's
think
how
that's
you know Working Woman was probably written by dudes.
probably at least edited.
Yes, this.
Yeah, I think in archive.org, I mean, I think it scans all the PDFs for anything. So if he's just searched for Pac-Man, this would have come up.
Yeah, but that would be too much. So I searched for it only in the game or gaming magazines section.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a lot of articles from later in the year. June's the earliest, but then like December, August, and December again, about women in video games articles. Like women joined the arcade revolution. That's also from June. The house that Pac built in Video Games Magazine. The absolutely positively last word on Pac-Man in Video Games Magazine. And a cracked review of popular video games. Old Cracked magazine is usually pretty funny. Modern crack.com website, not so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has, in their own take on this being a game for women, which I don't, maybe cynically that was what they were trying to do, but I don't know. I feel like Miss Pac-Man and regular Pac-Man can be enjoyed regardless of gender.
No, I agree. I think maybe if anything, it would be more inclusionary, where you say, hey, it doesn't have to be all men and guns. Here's a female protagonist that, so it could be anyone, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then tips for Miss Pac-Man started showing up later in the summer. So June and August, we have electronic games and video games magazines with tips on beating Miss Pac-Man, which is good. I always like these videos. Like at least once or twice a year, I get some article in one of my RSS feeds about shocking person finds previously undiscovered tip or trick for some video game, and you're like, that was in all the magazines in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Like I get that they may have independently discovered this trick, but it was in a magazine 40 years ago.
Yeah, kind of like recently the Mario Continue.
Yes, the Mario Continue, which I've known about since at least 1987.
Yeah, all the kids talked about it back then.
Everybody knew that trick. You did not. You're not discovering something new. It would be like, I don't know, going to France and saying you discovered the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that is a new thing to you. I understand
that. So what's your personal experiences or thoughts or anything on Miss Pac-Man?
I mean, the problem is I talked about it a lot last time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I played it a lot in the arcade. And of course, because of like the weird distribution rights around it, it wasn't on a lot of home versions. Like straight arcade ports weren't really a common thing. I have one of those like plug and play joystick Miss Pac-Man games that appears to be the arcade original. Some of the others are clearly like a weird port. But the Miss Pac-Man joystick one is definitely the original game. And then I have all these other Pac-Man collection plug and play things that just don't include Miss Pac-Man. Like that's the weird distribution thing with it. Like either you get Miss Pac-Man and nothing else, or you get all the Pac-Man games but not Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah, because they had to pay the creators.
Right. It's again, it's like it's this weird thing where like all the streaming music services can have every song ever written except for maybe Neil Young, right? And any other form of media that doesn't exist. So, I mean, that's I feel like I talked about it a lot last time. We're going to include a bunch of other links to other articles from this time about Miss Pac-Man. I just realized there's one to an intimate apparel industry magazine. I'm going to read that while you share your
Okay.
Miss Pac-Man's news here.
Well, this feels like a game that's just always been around. It's only a few years younger than I am, so I don't remember where I first saw it, just because it was always there, And It never seems like it ever went away or ever will go away, even more so than Donkey Kong. And so I kind of wrote it off in the 90s because I just thought trying to keep a franchise going that long was lame, and old video games were lame, and everything should be Street Fighter. And so I really wrote it off in the 90s, just like, Frogger for PS1, why? And so I'm really glad that it's still around. I think it's still a fantastic game. It's definitely better than the original Pac-Man. And to me, and I think to a lot of other people, when you think of Pac-Man, you actually think of Miss Pac-Man. The change in levels, the theme in the beginning, the specific fruit, all that stuff, the way the ghost moves. So that might just be me. And it wouldn't be this podcast if I didn't mention that everyone should play Pac-Man's Ghostly Adventures 1 and 2. Even though that's not Miss Pac-Man, it is part of Legacy and very overlooked. But yeah, what did you find on
so
that
this
site?
This is the greatest. Like I this is like a product that would exist today at Hot Topic. I can't believe I never saw this in the 80s. This must never have come to fruition, or if it did, I never saw it. Keepers Industry Inc. So they make pantyhose. You've probably heard of them. Keepers announced a licensing deal to license Asteroids, Battlezone, Missile Command, Centipede, Tempest, Warlords, and also Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man.
Wow. Wonder if you could find that stuff on eBay.
I just tried. I can't even find a photo of this stuff. I realize like doing a Google search for like Miss Pac-Man pantyhose is probably going to really screw up my search results for a long time. My recommended news and stuff, but I don't really care. I'm willing to take one for the team there. I searched for keepers specifically though, and nothing came up. If I remove the word keepers, what comes up? Probably a bunch of Etsy stuff. Pac-Man tights. Yep, Etsy is the number 2 result.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Wow. Now, do they make this in like a men's 36? I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, this is great.
That's funny.
They do not have. They have a lot of Pac-Man socks on Etsy, it looks like. And some Pac-Man neck gaiters, if that's what you prefer to wear. I think I might buy one of these. Oh, that's really bad Pac-Man artwork. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Pac-Man face masks. I don't know why.
Because why not?
Because I'm in Illinois. You're in Michigan. You probably don't think about these things as much as me. All right.
Any closing thoughts on Miss Pac-Man?
No, I do want to thank Zach. Hopefully he's listening, just again for all the research. We're going to include all the links that he dug up.
He did a lot of research.
A lot, yeah. He brings up a Ken Uston article. He wrote a lot of like how to win video games books, and then I believe he was killed by the mob.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, let's talk about our game club picks.
Yeah, all right. You want to do yours first?
Oh, doing reverse order. All
yeah,
right.
I'm pulling a
really mess things up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I played Doom 64 on the PlayStation 4, which, like I said, does fix the graphical problems. It looks really, really good on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wrote it in 2 categories, like good and bad things. I would say the good things is that I played on low difficulty just because I didn't feel like I just wanted to get through the whole game. Like I kind of wanted to see if I could just get through all the stages once. And I did, except I didn't get any of the secret levels. So I guess there's like 4 secret levels. And there's at least one I think I know how to get to it, but it seemed like kind of a pain, so I didn't do it. I would say it's like the best Doom engine port on a 90s console. Like the PlayStation or Jaguar are one of those 2 is second, but I don't think it's that close. It seems like rather than do a straight port of the Doom engine, which like, that's what they usually did. Is they took the Doom engine and just tried to port it. This is like a rewrite, like a clean room rewrite of the Doom engine that's meant to take advantage of the Nintendo 64 hardware. So it actually plays better because you're writing it for the system as opposed to trying to retrofit retrofit Doom into something that's not really meant to play it.
Yeah.
The levels are all new. There's one or two stages that clearly are like remixes of original levels. And overall plays really, really well. I had a lot of fun with it. There are a couple annoying things, like I feel like some of the level design was inspired by Myst. Like you hit a switch and then somewhere on the other side of the map something happens. And you spend a lot of time like hitting a switch and then just traversing the whole map to see what opened up.
So you had to have memorized what was already open or not.
Yeah, right. Like some random platform on the other side of the map just opened up. And then its most common technique for like being difficult is having enemies just spawn into locations out of nowhere. Like you cross some invisible line on the map and suddenly enemies appear.
Okay.
Which is a little annoying, but whatever. And then like the two horrible modern gen annoyances, like when you start the game up, you must go through 70 logo screens. I don't know. 70 is maybe a little high, but it felt like I went through more logo screens than even most modern games. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point I tried to save and it wouldn't let me save. And when I Googled what was going on, it's because every now and then, if Doom 64 can't connect to some totally random Bethesda server, you just can't save. Even though you're not saving to their server, you're saving to your local hard drive.
Yeah. That's insane. That's insane that they haven't fixed that yet, too.
No, I'm sure it's because Bethesda wants... I don't know. I have no idea why they care. They just want to know that you're out there and playing their game. It makes them feel special or something. I don't know. It's awful. That part, it's just so dumb that they do that. Like, so the idea of playing Doom 64, like, what if you just don't have... I should just try turning off the Wi-Fi on the PlayStation and see if I can play Doom 64.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, that probably is their fix.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of nice. Like, I change, about once a year, I change my Wi-Fi network name and passwords.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly I do it because we have so many, like after a year, my Wi-Fi is just really slow because we have so many just random devices connecting to it. It's like, oh, I have this Fire that I don't use, but it's sitting in a drawer somewhere, just sucking away internet,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like once a year, I just change it all to just break all these devices. And I have to admit, there are some game systems that are a lot better once you don't have network access.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. And then some that just don't work anymore, like the PSP, where you can't get it on a network because you don't have those protocols.
I wanted to get it on the network. That's the problem.
Exactly.
It's got my RSS feed reader. But speaking of like the most random feature built into a game system, the RSS reader in the PSP has to win. That's
funny. And you actually use it and like it? Or you did?
I used it in the past.
Yeah.
Like if you're commuting, it was actually, look, it was not a bad way to read news at one point. Okay. Like
yeah.
Pre-smartphone, it was actually really not a bad way to read RSS feeds.
I mean, I guess that's why, a lot of people don't realize that for a long time, I guess around 2011, Sony had phones that also could play PS1 games. And I guess that makes sense because the PSP was kind of like one of the first smartphones.
Yeah, it had a lot of smartphone features. It had basically like all the smartphone features minus making phone calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it had Skype, which is kind of close.
No, the Vita had Skype.
Oh, okay.
The PSP didn't have Skype. The Vita definitely had Skype because I've used it for Skype for a while. It's not very good for Skype.
I believe it.
It was actually good for Netflix. I mean, the Vita had a lot of... if we ever do a Vita tribute show, I could talk a lot about some of the really good things the Vita does.
Mm-hmm.
It did not have the RSS reader, though.
You could write one. You could get a Vita dev kit and write one.
I'm actually thinking, I was talking about this Roku dev kit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's not a bad one, like creating the RSS feed channel on the Roku.
Why not?
Because just plug it in and it just renders RSS feeds on a TV screen. Like that seems like a thing people would want. You can do it with Raspberry Pi easily enough, but Yeah, maybe if I play with the Roku Dev Kit this year, I'll try that. The RSS feed channel. It means I have to write like a regular expression to parse the feed. Oh, this already sounds awful. All right, so Bonk's Adventure.
Yeah, so this is always in, I wrote down top 5 favorite games of all time, but it's probably top 3 favorite games of all time. So, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know that Bonk's Adventure was kind of the mascot game on TurboGrafx 16, even though it didn't come with it. It came with Keith Courage and AlphaZone. But this was a game published by Hudson Soft, developed by Red Company, Atlas, Factor 5, and AI Company Limited. And, well, they just did the NES port. Anyway, it came on TurboGrafx, NES, Game Boy, Amiga, and Arcade, but the only one to me that matters is the TurboGrafx port, because when you try to play this other places now, you often get the NES version, and it is not nearly as good, if you ask me. Just because the TurboGrafx, it just played perfectly, and it looked much better. But you play as Bonk, and you are trying to save Princess Za from King Drool, and they are on the moon or Moonland or something like that. So as you progress through different levels, you're getting closer and closer to the moon, and the way they did that, the art for that is just fantastic. And I really think everything about this game is great. It has some of the best music, at least for the time. I think the gameplay is fantastic. Like, yeah, there is some jank in there. Like, if you try to climb a wall, you use your teeth. But I don't even think about that now. It's all second nature to me. And once you get really good at this game, I should rephrase that. If you'd like to be really good at this game, you have to get really good at navigating the turbo switch on the TurboGrafx. Because when you jump, if you have the turbo on, you could keep spinning and kind of fly. And you don't always want that. And on the other button, you would bite to climb really quickly. So you're really, if you're watching speedrunners, they're turning those turbos on and off really quickly. And I'm almost there. I know a lot of the speedrunning tricks. And the reason why I picked this game is because I got it with my TurboGrafx back in the day. I got it with, Keith Courage and Devil's Crush. But 3 very different games. And this one I played by far the most, throughout the winter, because I got it for Christmas, and that's why I picked it, around now. And I just played it and beat it over and over again. I could pretty much beat this game with my eyes closed. I beat it with like 6 guys now, extra lives. Mm-hmm. This is a great test for your emulator, especially USB lag, because, with Bluetooth or even USB controllers, a lot of times the turbo just isn't timed right. That's why, your MR is working correctly. That's why it's going to be fun to see if the Duo from Analogue gets that correct. What else do I have in here? The developer, Red Entertainment, also did Gates of Thunder, Lords of Thunder, and a ton of other games that I've never heard of, but they are still around. Atlas did the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona games, at least some of them. A lot of people think Bonk's Revenge, which is Bonk's Adventure 2, is the better game, which I definitely get.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I think most people are, but I think Bonk plays a little bit better. I like all the new ideas in Bonk's Revenge, but I think Bonk plays a little bit better. Its spin mechanic, I think, looks better, and I kind of can't get over how his head looks weird when you eat the meat to become invincible in Bonk's Revenge. That's just a whole bunch of my problem, though. But to me, this is a flawless game. This is my Super Mario Brothers 3. I will always cherish it, at least the TurboGrafx port. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, you gotta get one of these controllers.
I have one of those controllers.
Yeah, with one button is regular, the button above it is turbo.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it a lot easier. Like one of the ones where there's just a turbo button built in. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever finished the original Bonk. I played a lot of Bonk's Revenge. The thing is, I got Bonk and Bonk's Revenge at the same time because they were both pack-in games for the Duo.
Yeah.
And Revenge, I just played a lot more of. I think Revenge is like one of the, top 5 or 3 platformers of the 16-bit era. I was always really been a big fan of that game. I actually think that the NES and Game Boy versions I think are very good for their respective hardware. I imported the Japanese Game Boy version a long time ago. It's pretty solid for Game Boy.
Yeah, exactly. They're good for their hardware, but you have the superior version that you can play.
Yeah. The kind of inferior version. Have you ever played the GameCube version of Bonk's Adventure?
I've only seen it on YouTube. Why don't you explain it? Yeah.
Yeah, they had it at Midwest Gaming Classic in 2021. So it was a Japan exclusive, and it really is the original game. Like it's just the layout, the maps, all this stuff. It's the original game. It has, been completely reskinned, so it's new graphics. But it plays a lot slower. It feels like.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a kind of tripped version of Bonk. It's slow and really colorful.
It's the Sonic 4 of Bonk.
Okay, I haven't played Sonic 4, but I will accept that analogy. And I don't know, maybe the developers wanted to, were encouraged to make games that required the turbo button because they're trying to show off that our system comes with a turbo button and the other ones don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I played on actually was most recently was the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, which, not that it makes any difference, but it only has the Japanese version.
That's right. I forgot about that. Huh, that is strange.
It's odd. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
But, I mean, it doesn't have a deep story, so you could definitely get through it.
Yeah, I think Bonk's Revenge is in English on there. Possibly because it has more dialogue. Bonk essentially just has, when you fight the boss, they're like, hey, I'm going to kill you now. And, oh, thank you for freeing me from the curse or whatever.
Yeah, arf, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the turbo button, I did want to mention that this is why I got into the Bliss box, because of any other controller. If you try to emulate or play in a Mister or something, and for me it was on the Mister, every 2 seconds, Bonk would miss one spin when you're trying to do the hover mechanic, and that was game breaking for me. I'll have to test it. I have that same controller you were holding up, so I haven't tested that yet, so I'll have to give it a try. You use that on your TurboGrafx Mini?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like the controllers with the Mini, but I often am not sitting next to it, so I bought the wireless controller so for people who obviously can't see my screen, this is the 8-bit Do
Mm-hmm.
TurboGrafx controller. It's really small. That's the only complaint I have. I could basically, if I was a magician, I could easily hide the thing in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's very small. That's the only complaint about it. But I haven't really noticed any lag on it. But I don't play a lot of super fast action games on there, so maybe I'm just oblivious.
Yeah, Devil's Crush is another one to test lag with. If you're not as good as you usually are, it's getting laggy.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to play for the next episode?
So I think next episode this is testing, kind of pushing the boundaries of the word retro, but this game is 15 years old. I looked it up, 15. That seems pretty old. Jackass the game. So this is a PlayStation 2 PSP game. I believe there's also a 3DS version, but it is usually considered to be bad.
All of them are, right? Usually considered to be bad?
I don't think it's really bad.
Okay. And you're picking this because of the movie that just came out.
Because the movie's coming out, yeah. It seems like a relevant time to go back and explore this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people say it's bad, and the biggest complaint seems to be that it's just a collection of mini games. And I'm like, what else were you expecting? A tactical RPG?
Yeah.
60 frame per second first person shooter?
Yeah.
What are you expecting from a show that's a variety of different stunts? What other genre could you possibly make a Jackass game out of?
That's like saying the Winter Olympics games are a series of mini games. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I have the same question. What would you prefer? Laserdisc QuickTime game? Is that better?
That is funny.
Open world action RPG?
Yeah.
Winter Olympics and Jackass, the open world action RPG. Like, I don't get that criticism. I just don't. Puzzle fighter? Is that what you would like?
That wouldn't be bad.
Well, it would be.
Yeah, true.
And it would be fine, but it wouldn't be the Winter Olympics or Jackass, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with Ape Escape simply because I've never really played it much, and I hear it's better than I remember. And I thought about it because in the news last week there was a truck crash, I think in Pennsylvania, where a bunch of monkeys escaped. They've all been caught. They're all fine.
Oh, they have caught them all?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I was worried we were going to go through this pandemic thing from scratch.
Exactly. So there it is. So if our listeners play Jackass the game, Ape Escape.
Wait, hold on. Why did someone have a truckload of monkeys?
They were like test monkeys, like makeup and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, I think we are close to starting the zombie apocalypse on that one. Pretty close.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, we'll find out in Ape Escape, right? So, listeners, if you guys play Jackass the game, Ape Escape, Doom 64, what else did we play? Bonk's Adventure, Miss Pac-Man. If you have some cool retro news, cool things you're working on, we always love projects. Know any new retro games coming out, please email us. Email at retrogameclub.net, email at retrogameclub.net, or look at our link tree, which has a ton of stuff like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe other stuff Zach does. And again, thank you, Zach, for the all the work you do more than us. But I think I could take these first two emails if you don't mind.
All right. I keep reading this first email as greetings from Mad Michigan.
Yes, well, Mid-Michigan is kind of mad, but
okay.
Yeah, Jared writes us, and he has some very nice things to say about the podcast. And he's been a retro fan for about 20 years, and last November he decided to start his retro collection all the way from the Mark III through the Dreamcast, which is a very, very expensive time to start collecting. He got EverDrives and a RetroTink 5X with it. Yeah, he listened to our episode about the upgrading your Dreamcast, and he definitely agrees a mode or something like that is a perfect thing for your EverDrive or Sega Saturn. Yeah, he did play some Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast. He owned it back when it first came out, but he didn't remember mission mode, and he's been chipping away at it. And he also says that Bonk for TurboGrafx has always been in his top 20 of all time. It was his first he had for the Turbo. Yeah, like me, he says like it's his Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah, then another one. So thank you, Jared. And then we have another one here from Eric from the Pacific Northwest, which I'm very glad we got this email because for some reason, still unknown why, Gmail was blocking him for us. I don't know what was going on there. He was catching up and he was thinking about the PS2 and PS1 cheating devices, and he wonders if we ever use the Game Shark to play imports on PS1 or the HD loader on PS2. Have you done any of those two?
No. And I probably wouldn't consider it because the PlayStation Classic plays import games just fine.
So
you have to rip them and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if you have it, you could just make an ISO and then put it on there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And his buddy uses Goldfinger. It plugs into the parallel port of the PS1, and it also lets you load imports. And he asked us if we've seen this other device that allows you to load PS2 games from the memory slot. And yeah, I just watched a video on YouTube about this thing. It's crazy. So it's like a SD to memory card thing that you plug into the memory card port 2 on the PS2. And yeah, you can load all your ISOs from there, and it is actually faster than USB somehow. And I guess PS2 probably used USB like 1.1, right? So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
He was going to play Soul Calibur for a bit. He still may when he gets it on the GDEMU on Dreamcast. He tried Doom 64 on the Xbox. It was not as dark as he remembers on the Nintendo 64. So I know you brought it up, but was there just like a bright mode?
Yeah, there's a brightness. There's just literally a brightness setting.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Turn that up all the way. Yeah.
They didn't call it like modern mode.
It's just a slider.
Okay. Okay. And he has, for a future game club game, he has a suggestion about a Hexen or Heretic, because we talk about Doom and Doom Engine a lot, and which are great suggestions. I tend to stay away from a lot of those simply because I get motion sick when I play them. But I did play him a lot back in the day. I don't know what happened to me. But yeah, he got a modded Dreamcast that we talked about in our last episode. He has the GDEMU clone from eBay, a new fan, a new power supply mod, a controller fuse mod, which, Eric, please write us back and tell me what that one is. I need to know about that one. And he had all the caps replaced. And it was only around $300, which is a great deal. What else? He would say the must-have mods would be the GDEMU or the Terra Onion mode. He'd say the power supply, fan, and fuse mods would also be pretty important, but you don't really need HDMI because it has a VGA out, kind of. You know, how about modding an OG Xbox or GameCube, which, yeah, I don't know if those have SD mods, do they? I feel like the GameCube must have one, but...
the Xbox has a hard drive, right?
Yeah, it does. So it should.
I'm sure. I think I had an Xbox at one point that I was going to use to convert to like just a dedicated main machine, and then I said, "Nah, I'm not going to do that," and I got rid of it.
Let's see. Wait, I'm googling here quickly. XD. No, nothing I see here, but maybe that'll be a future episode thing. So, yeah, Eric, thank you so much for emailing us, and thank you for working with us to finally get your emails to work again. I promise we didn't mark you as spam or something like that.
Well, maybe he shouldn't send us all that spam. Adam writes in, let's see. He said Doom 64 Remastered was on Game Pass. Is that the Xbox thing?
Yes.
Okay. He says he actually really liked it. He liked the layout of the right, which was one of the things I brought up I didn't like, but he liked it a lot apparently, and he thinks it's a very balanced Doom game. And he tried Final Doom when we were talking about it, and thought Doom 64 is a much better experience, and I agree with that fully. He played Bonk's Revenge on the Wii U Virtual Console, which I forgot had Bonk's Revenge. So this is the second one, but basically he's talking about the mechanics, which are basically the same. Landing and jumping head bash is tricky, but fun once you get the hang of it. That's another like flipping turbo on and off problem.
Yeah.
And likes the idea. He likes the way the power ups work a lot, and thankfully that doesn't happen in real life. He said he would have loved playing this game when he was a kid, and unfortunately didn't have the opportunity. And also recommends Madden 09 on the Nintendo Wii. We talked about Madden recently. He said it's very, very good looking for a Wii game. And once you get the hang of the controller, the motion controls, it's actually pretty easy.
Okay.
I feel like I never fully got the hang of the motion controls. Yeah, this seems to be like one of his favorite ports of Madden. And he wants to recommend Suikoden 2 and Klonoa. I know I would like the Suikoden games because I've heard other podcasts, like RPG podcasts, talk about them. And that is a series I would like to try and go back and figure out how to get into.
Cool.
And what else here? Majors writes in barcode scanning to launch games kiosk. Oh, he said that the last MagFest, they had something similar to that set up. It was for a series of challenges that were like the NES remix for the Wii U. So you would begin a card you could scan that then launched the emulator to launch a game at a specific stage. It's kind of a cool idea too.
Yeah, very.
RetroArch supporting Nintendo 64 cards. He said at first he thought this was a silly idea, but then realized that getting real N64 hardware is more challenging now. And that it seems very similar to the HyperKid Retro 5 or the Retro Freak. Hopefully better than the Retron 5.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Let's see. Waiting for MTV to pick up the show Pimp My Dreamcast as a new reality show. I like that. Cheetah Man Games. He had the Mandela effect moment around Cheetah Man. He thought it was a bootleg NES cart filled with 50 poorly made games. And he actually has it backwards. It is a one poorly made beat 'em up game on an Action 52 cart. And he's always been a big fan of Bonk's Adventure. He really likes the visual style, and the controls maybe weren't, he said, very tight, but he plays it once or twice a year anyways. And apparently he sent us a picture of finishing the game recently.
Yeah, cool.
And a couple of quickies here. Ryan, pirate radio guy, and he wants to share with us his Atari branded spinners that he built for his arcade cabinet. So these are 3D printed. He has a 3D printed case that was designed to house it, and now he can play Tempest and TaxScan. So this is a homemade controller that he made.
It looks nice.
It does, yeah. You could also do Tempest, I guess, too. Wait, so Tempest 2000, I mean. You know, someone made for the Jaguar a adapter to put a spinner on the controller specifically for Tempest 2000. What else I think of? Gyrus didn't have a spinner, did it? Gyrus was a spinner game like Tempest, but didn't have a spinner.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture the control panel. I can't. Huh, yeah.
I had a spinner. And then Nick writes in to say thanks for the Dreamcast modding episode. He just got his first Dreamcast recently. And also to say that he played through Bonk's Adventure on TurboGrafx 16 several times as a kid. Really liked the strange aesthetics and slightly janky controls. Said it fit in very well with the overall weirdness of the console. Later on, he got the Famicom version as an adult and found that it was actually a pretty good port, despite obviously the graphics being downgraded. He said he enjoys Bonk's Revenge a lot, but always has a soft spot for the first game in the series.
Yeah, thank you for all those emails.
Again, that is email@retrogameclub.net if you want to have one of your emails read.
Yeah. And Zach had some social media questions. What is a must-do mod for your Dreamcast? And we had, let's see, the first one here is Doom 64. Someone played all the way through and loved it. Bonk's Bonk's Adventure comment. He's beaten it on TG16 and NES. Didn't like the NES port as much. It was just the same, but downgraded all around. And someone else says for Dreamcast mods that the HDMI port is probably a must. And that could go, for me it is, for my setup it is, but if you could play with the VGA out, I mean, that works, right?
That's what I use. Now, there are some games that don't support VGA out, but I don't know if it's any that I own.
My favorite Dreamcast game, Bang.io, is one of them, and it drives me crazy.
Okay. I feel like maybe Bust-A-Move 4 is one, but you actually can get around it by booting a different disc first.
Well, all right. I guess that wraps up Season 4, Episode 3.
Yeah, I guess so. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.